You are tuned in to another edition of Americana Music Profiles, brought to you by Americana Rhythm Music Magazine and AmericanaMusicMagazine.com. I'm your host, Greg Tutwiler. Let's jump right in to the next exciting interview. Frances Mooney is an Atlanta country music Hall of Famer. She's been playing bluegrass music for over 50 years and helped create one of the first all-female bluegrass bands, Cherokee Rose. Frances has a new CD, Wild and Free, and she is my guest on this edition of Americana Music Profiles. Hi, Frances. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
I am good. How are you? It's a pleasure to talk to you.
I'm doing good here in Georgia today.
Georgia, good. I was going to ask you because I wasn't sure if it was Georgia or Kentucky, so now I know.
It's the Peach State, Georgia.
Now, did I understand it correctly? You grew up in Kentucky? Do I have that right?
No. Actually, I grew up in Georgia. I lived in Kentucky in the early part of 70s.
Okay.
For bluegrass music.
Right.
So,
all right. Well, I knew Kentucky was in the mix there somewhere. So
It is.
Good. All right. Well, so you've been playing a while, played through probably several different interpretations of bluegrass music, right? It's been
I sure have. I've been at it 50 plus years.
Wow. Well,
that's a long time.
That is a long time.
I was just a mere baby.
So how did that start for you? What got you into music?
My mother and dad. I grew up in music. My grandparents on my mother's side were musicians, and it just trickled through them to both my parents. My dad and my mother played, and I wasn't really into it till around 17 years old, and it just kind of one day all of a sudden I wanted to learn to play.
Really? Okay.
And I was 17 before I ever struck a note on anything, and it was guitar. So it was inborn in me. It just took a while coming out, and I haven't stopped since I started in the early 70s.
Where did it go for you at that point, at 17, when you picked up the guitar? Were you all singing? Did you jump into a band and sing, or did you form your own band? How did the next step happen for you?
The next step was when I started at that, around 17, I just learned a few songs, and so I could play, with my dad. And at that time, my mother and dad had separated, so Daddy still continued to play, and I thought, well, he needs somebody to sit around and play with, so I learned to play guitar, so he played dobro.
Yeah,
so,
okay.
Or dobro by brand name. It's called a resophonic guitar, but we still call it dobro.
Sure.
Anyway, started just that. I had, he come in one day and we played a tune, and from then on I started kind of singing in a little group he was in at the time, and just as a guest, on radio stations. The Everett Brothers. I don't know if you've ever heard of the Everett Music Barn here in Georgia, but
it does ring a bell. Yeah.
It's a historic place. And a lot of your bluegrass entertainers coming through Georgia, they play there.
Sure.
I mean, your top artists. And so anyway, he played with them, and I got to play in some with them. And country music was my first love. So I sang a lot of country songs, Loretta Lynn. And from there, then married. My husband, at that time, played guitar, so I had to jump to something else. So I had, being the only female, I was elected to play and learn to play the bass.
Okay.
Fiddle. So that's where I started then in the early 70s when I married and before my children were born, playing music. And by the mid 70s, we had moved to Kentucky, where we were invited to Louisville, Kentucky, to play on the bluegrass circuit with the Bluegrass Alliance, which was Lonnie Pierce at that time.
Right. Yeah. And was this something that you all were pursuing full time?
Yes.
Okay.
We did it full time, and did that full time for 2 years. When, as these things happen, sometimes I went through divorce from the kid's father. So at that time, I moved back to Georgia with my two boys, and it was such a big part of my life. After playing 2 years full time in Louisville, Kentucky, around the circuit, we were able to stay real busy playing Ramada and Holiday Inns at the time that J.D. Crowe was playing.
Okay.
We alternated some of the Holiday Inn and Ramada Inns up there with them, and when one group would get through, the other one would congregate at the other say we were playing the Ramada Inn, and they were across the road at the Holiday Inn. They got through before us. They'd come and sit in with us and play. Tony Rice, Ricky Skaggs been on stage with me many times.
Wow, that's cool.
And so it was, I got to be in the earlier years of their career too.
Sure.
So
times have changed.
It's been a good road. It's I've had a lot of good experience and a lot of good training by picking up from other artists.
Yeah.
Still do.
Yeah.
Still do.
That way of playing doesn't happen as much anymore, though, does it?
No, it doesn't.
It was an older style, an older day.
Older day, and it was so personal. Ricky Skaggs, I did, I think it was 4 LPs. I have to look back and look because the LPs have been going a long time. But and in those days, and it was at that time we were called the bluegrass generation. Mm-hmm. And so we did 4 LPs, but Ricky Skaggs was on 2 of those, and he also produced one of those. And the last one we did was Vince Gill and Ricky Skaggs were on it.
Oh, neat.
So Vince, I talk to him occasionally, not often, but I do run into him sometimes at the station inn, and I told him about him playing the pedal steel on the last recording we did in the 70s. Uh-huh. He couldn't believe it. He says, "You mean I actually played a pedal steel?" I said, "Yes, and you did a good job of it too." I have it on an LP.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. I feel like there's probably a lot of really interesting, good, unique music tucked away on records like that in corners all across the country where people can't get to them anymore. They just
no, you can't. These are no longer they were on what they call the Adoram label, which was a label that was here in Georgia,
right?
And a lot of I think Carl's Story was on that label, but it was a little town here in Georgia called Marietta, Georgia. Mm-hmm. Well, it's Adoram as Marietta spelled backwards.
Oh, okay, that's neat.
It is. But it was. So those are no longer. He's since then passed away, and I tried to get a hold of the masters, and the kids said that they'd been long gone. They had no idea what happened to them. So I don't even have the masters to those. But I do have the LPs.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I guess the LPs could be.
I've had some of them redone into, to a CD format, which, my voice was so young. Yeah. I listened back, I said, man, I've matured.
Yeah. Now, I think I read where you went from there to actually create an all-female band, which is pretty unheard of during that time.
At that time, it was around 1980.
Yeah.
And came, back in Georgia, of course, then moving back, and because I was born and raised here in Cumming, Georgia, and so of course, it brought me back whenever I went through divorce, raising 2 little boys, and they were more important than anything I could have done musically. Sure. But since then, they're both in music, so it trickled on from me to them.
Yeah.
But back in Georgia in around 1980, we decided, a couple of friends of mine, to do an all-female group, and did. We had a girl by the name of Tyra Summers here in Georgia playing dobro, Connie Morris, banjo, and Mindy Rakestraw playing guitar, and I played bass, of course.
Okay.
And then later years, Louisa Branscombe, prominent songwriter, I'm sure you've heard of her. Mm-hmm. She joined the group when one of our bench player left, and so we were on the road with Lance Leroy was our booking agent at the time, and out of Nashville, and so we were on the circuit doing really well, but it got too hard for me raising 2 young boys. Mm-hmm. Sure. So I left in good terms with the group and left it with them. Yeah. And they traveled and did a lot for quite some time.
Now, did you retire, so to speak, at that point?
I retired for 6 months, and I couldn't take it. I couldn't handle it.
Yeah.
So I came back with a group called Indian Summer Band, and we did a lot of work around Georgia, outside of Georgia, into the Carolinas, and just connecting states, kind of, and I was able to do that, work a full-time job with the state of Georgia, with Georgia Department of Juvenile Justice. So I maintained a 40-hour week job and worked weekends and had enough vacation time, I used that whenever they needed us on a weekday.
Yeah.
So we got it going really good. And then again, later years, some of the band members, they kind of come and go, and it's hard to keep people together.
It is.
So I kind of quit again for a little while, and there again, couldn't take it, couldn't handle it. And in 1998, I formed my final band, which is Francis Mooney and Fontana Sunset.
Okay.
And we've been going ever since.
So you guys have been together a while.
Yes, from the 70s, early 70s to date.
Yeah.
I've not had music in my life even to last over 6 months at a time, only a couple of times. And it's just, it was a big part of my life, and it's nothing like entertaining and looking out across your fans or the people listening to you and getting a vibe that they're enjoying what you're doing.
Yeah.
There's just nothing better than that feel.
Sure, yeah,
and,
of course.
You can have the worst day in the world, and my husband, now I'll say, I just don't feel like playing tonight. I'm gonna get through this. He said, "Oh, you will." and before when I got off stage, he'd say, "Well, you couldn't tell you was having a bad day."
Yeah, right. Yeah, music does that for the players as well as the audience, because
absolutely,
I've sat in that audience and not been in the best of places either, and you tend to forget where everything else was, and you're only focused on what's happening right there in the audience. So yeah.
Right.
So have you been able to
recording?
What's that? I'm sorry.
I said we have. We've throughout the years I've had several recordings. Some of my fondest is the earlier years, just because of the personal feel of it. The personal feel with the other artist, and you become a family, and we still are. To this day, we're all, even the members that's come and went, we're all still very close.
That's good. Now, we were talking off air before we started putting the show together this afternoon that you don't necessarily write your songs, but seek out other writers for your material. Right,
I do, and this CD, the one that we just come out with, has been. I did more with seeking songs that had never been recorded through some good songwriters. And in the past, we did cover songs. You do. You know what I'm talking about, like
sure.
"Love Come Home" or some of the Osborne Brothers songs. Where you're doing stuff that's been done in the past, which artists do that now, and they do good. But they also have to have some new material, which I've never really thought that was important. Well, it is important. It is important if you can come up with a good songwriter that can write for you.
Right.
That knows your style, your vocal. I mean, everything about you. And I've been able to have a few of those. Louisa Branscombe being one. And Paula Brila sent me several, and we were going to record one, but somebody grabbed it before we got it recorded.
No.
I know, so we were not able to get hers. But I did. I went about this CD different, and it's paying off.
And we're talking about the CD Wild and Free,
Wild
right?
and Free.
Yeah. And
correct.
So, what do you mean that you did it differently?
Well, in the past, just doing cover songs and not coming out with a per se a song that's been overworked.
Sure, right. So what we were just talking
we
about.
We like it. You say we love this song. We're going to do this on this.
Yeah,
this CD. We actually went with some that had we did some original material. In the past, we did that too, but not very many. We would come out. We didn't really search out the songwriters. They're just as important to you as you are to them.
Sure.
In writing, but it's also good to know that some of those out there write for you.
Right.
They write something that they know that you can do, that your band, maybe we can do a good job of it, another band might not do as well with.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what we seek with this one. So I've not really pushed other music that we've done throughout the years like we have this one. Although we were in the 70s going really good at that time, but that was then. And so it's just, I like I said, I've had my hand at trying to write, but I just can't get it.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you all day, something I'd like to be in a song, like a hook, like you said.
Uh-huh.
But I can't get it to there.
Yeah,
it won't go from my brain out this hand.
Yeah.
I write a book. In other words, I might be good at writing a book.
Well, there you go. Well, that's why they make collaborators.
Right. Exactly.
So you were telling me that the title "Wild and Free" has some sort of special significance to you as the title of the record.
Well, the single that just released in latter part of December, early part of, I think it could have been early part of this month, but anyway, it's called High on a Mountain. And there's just something about that song that I wanted to be a title cut because I love mountains and horses, and there was, we'll ride our ponies up an old deer trail is a lyric in the song.
Okay.
And wild and free. So my vision was seeing wild horses out in a pasture, wild and free. Just not a pasture, but like in the out west where they run wild and free. That was my vision, and I thought that just might be a good catchy title. So that's exactly where that came from. Is a lyric from High on a Mountain, the single that just came out.
Cool.
On this record, we had a good songwriter by the name of David Stewart. I'd like to mention his name because he sent. I finally told him not to send me any more songs because it was going to be a whole CD of David Stewart songs if he did. Because he, whenever I met the guy at Stigma last year, and he knew we were going to be recording them this past year. And he says, well, let me take a listen at your music. Well, he did, and I didn't. I thought, well, why does he want to hear what I've done? Mm-hmm. Well, I do know now. He gears the songs he's going to send you toward your sound, and your vocal.
Yeah. And
he was able to even, with I'm not the only singer in my band, which I love.
Mm-hmm.
When we do a stage show, I do half the songs, and the guys do some of the songs. So it's not like you're going to hear Francis Mooney the whole show.
Mm-hmm.
I like to share the stage with my guys, and they do a good job. So in doing that, I just seeked out. Several people were sending me songs. I'm still getting songs from songwriters, and they're good. But good gracious, I can't do another CD right now. I've got to push this one.
Right.
But I wish I was the songwriter some of these people are, but that's just one. But I had, a couple of other that sent me songs. We did some of Trey Ward. I don't know if you've ever heard of him, but he's another songwriter that I was able to do a couple of originals that hasn't been recorded by any artist.
Right.
And these were with the David Stewart songs.
Okay.
These are the first time you will have heard these songs
neat.
out. And hope that I can get them going.
Yeah. The record is out now?
It is. It's not totally out. It just got downloaded to AirPlay Direct.
Okay.
So it's on AirPlay Direct, but it will be available on the 18th. We're having the CD release party this weekend, and it's going to be at the Everett's Music Barn that I was telling you about.
Sure, yeah.
Morning.
Okay.
But it will be available on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, CD Baby, AirPlay Direct, and probably other. I think it's even going to be on Spotify. So I think it's going to be downloadable in most your places that you get your music from.
Okay.
And you can go to my website and also get the full CD with going through the PayPal.
So folks want to go to your website and want to reach out and speak with you maybe a little more about your music. What's the website address? It's
www.fontana, FONTANNA, that's two N's, sunset, SUNSET.com.
Okay, great. Well, we certainly wish you well with it, and I'm sure that you will do well with it, and so you can get on to the next batch of songs and get ready to record those other good songs that you didn't get a chance to include on this record.
Right.
And we'll look forward to seeing you at the events. And will your tour schedule be mostly kind of in the southern part of the country, Georgia, or will you branch out quite a bit?
Right now, but we're looking to add more dates. We work solely, pretty much. I'm behind on getting those dates booked right now, but we're working on several things, and hopefully that will happen. And I wanted to mention one more thing. I'll be at Stigma this year. Sometimes you don't brag on yourself ever, but I'm so thankful for fans that believe in me and my music. And this is several years in a row that I've been nominated for Bass Player of the Year.
Great.
And also for this year, I think this is about the third or fourth time at Female Vocalist of the Year.
Okay, awesome.
So I'm very honored to be on that list of such great artists.
Yeah. Well, we hope you win them both.
I wanted to make sure you knew that.
Yeah.
And, but yes, just check the website. There are going to be dates being added. Check my website, and people, our fans and friends of fans, can go there and purchase my music and see where we're going to be at. Good. And pick up one at a show near them.
Great. Well, thank you, Frances. This has been fun talking to you and learning about your story and your history, and we wish you well.
Well, there's just so much more that you could say about it, but some of it we'll talk about, and some of it I won't talk about. So.
Okay.
No, it's been a great ride,
and
it still is.
Good.
But thank you so much for talking with me about it as well.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks. Thanks again for tuning in to this episode of Americana Music Profiles. Find us on iTunes at Americana Music Profiles and on the internet at AmericanaRhythm.com.